Happy Friday, everybody. Hello. Welcome. It's Friday. Woohoo. We are having a talk today. Sasha went last time, turn, so I'm going to wait a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, to let people come on in and join the live. But hello, everybody. This is one of our new things we're doing on Fridays. So we will be having some legal tidbits on Friday afternoons with Sasha, myself, or maybe the both of us. But excited to be here. Hope everyone's having an amazing day. I know because it's like the anticipation of the weekend. It's a nice break. So it's Friday. Woo, woo, woo. Friday. And you might see me like going from the screen because I have a Facebook live camera here and an Instagram live camera here. I should on my personal page. Let me do that. Now, while we wait for people to come on into the live. Friday. Woohoo. I'm really excited. I have Monster this weekend with my kids. That's what I'm doing on Sunday. My son is obsessed with monster trucks, so that is our excitement for the weekend. It's on Sunday. Oh, let's see. How do I do this? It says I'm live. Okay, and right, post. Okay. All right, done. Okay, share on my page. All right, it's been 3 minutes, so I'll get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hom Live. Woohoo! I am one of the two partners at Hom Law, which stands for Having an Attorney When It Matters. I am attorney Alicia Adamson Profit, and it's exciting to be here. If you've been seeing any of the promo videos for today, the name of today's conversation is Expungement, Life After the Charge. So that's what we'll be talking about today. We're going to be here for a few minutes, but I'm just hoping I give you guys enough information to either use for yourself, share. Feel free to share the video. If you feel so inclined, I would appreciate it. Hom Law, just so you all know, is a full service practice. We are in Central Florida. We handle immigration cases, criminal defense, and family law. We often say if you're running from the police or even your spouse, keep calm and all Hom. Our number is 407-802-3223. So give us a call to get a consultation set up, and let's get right into the program. My name again is attorney Alicia Adamson, and our topic is expungement, life after the charge. And so first thing on the program I want to talk about is oftentimes I'm asked, how is a record created? Do I have a criminal history? Do I have a record? Will my job see this? Is this going to pull up on my background? That's a very common question I get. And so I just want to talk to you about how a criminal record can occur in your life. The most common way is getting arrested. If you are arrested on a case, typically you can bond out, or you may have to see a judge at first appearance, but that will create a record. Now, sometimes people get arrested and then their case gets dismissed before they ever have a court date. And they make a mistake thinking that because their case was dismissed, that they no longer have a criminal record. And that is not true. Okay, so even if you're arrested, and even if the case gets dismissed before you ever even have to go to court, you still have a criminal record that can be pulled up by an employer, by if you're seeking housing, if you're applying for some type of certification, and sometimes arrests need to be explained. Or personally, for me, when applying for my application to become an attorney with the Florida Bar, they ask questions about whether or not you're arrested, or so those types of things matter. So it's very important to know that just because a case is dismissed doesn't mean that your record goes away. Another way is a notice to appear. So sometimes if you have contact with law enforcement officers, they don't have to necessarily, they can issue a notice that gives to appear for court. So you don't actually have the arrest, but a case number is still created, and that's something that can be found on a background check. And then another way is a warrant. Most times you're not going to get a heads up that you have a warrant. And so those records, a lot of times when either the state attorney's office or a law enforcement officer puts together what's called a probable cause affidavit, basically saying that they think that there's probable cause for an arrest, they'll bring it to a judge. A judge can sign off on that. Then there'll be a warrant for your arrest, which then creates the record. Okay, so those are a couple of ways that you can have a record. So the next question that I want to answer is, what can I do with my record after the case is closed? The first thing is you could do nothing, right? Which is what a lot of people do. And if you do nothing, nothing will happen. So there is a misconception sometimes that people think if a certain amount of time goes by, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, there's all sorts of like numbers that people throw around, that might automatically going to drop off my record. That is not true. Off of your record. And so if you do not take an additional step to get it removed, then it will repair. Okay. Another thing you can do after your case is closed is you can get your case sealed or expunged, which is the topic of what we're talking about today. And just as a FYI, under Florida law, adult criminal history records are public information. Every county has a different way that they display those things. Specifically in Orange County, it's very easy to access those records. You just can go to the clerk of court, myorangeclerk.com. You can type in someone's name, type in a case number, and typically most of the documents that are related to a criminal case are accessible to the public. And so for that reason alone, sometimes people want to get their records sealed or expunged, because even if you're innocent and even if the case was dismissed, it still can be embarrassing. It's still, people are nosy. They can get to see all the business. And so people want that to where the public doesn't have access to it. So that's what the benefit of getting your record sealing and expunging does. So another question I'm often asked is, what is the difference between sealing and expunging? And both of them are tools that you should utilize if it's available to you. Sealing, literally, I just to use a visual, it's like a black tape, like going over the record. And then expunging is literally, the word expunge means to dispose or to destroy. So that's kind of how you can visualize it, except for it's not really destroyed, because there are certain entities that will have access to those records. But what sealing and expunging does universally is it prevents the public from being able to view those criminal records. They can't view the fact that it's there or the content of it. And both sealing and expunging are all outlined in the Florida statutes. And so they both have their own statute. I'm going to just try to summarize them for you. But just if you want to know, the expunction statute is Florida Statute 943.0585. And the sealing statute is 943.059. All right. And so I talked about trying to explain the difference between sealing and expunging. It's really what these entities, and I'll go over them, what their access is. Okay. So if you have a criminal record, and even if it is sealed or expunged, these are the entities that will always have some sort of access to those records. If you're seeking employment with a criminal justice agency, the FBI or a law enforcement agency, if you are a defendant in a criminal prosecution, so say you got a case expunged and then you find yourself rearrested, even if the case is expunged or sealed, the state attorney's office will still have access to that. Also, admission to the Florida bar. I cut off that, but even if my record is sealed or expunged, the Florida bar will have access to those records. A job with the Department of Children and Families, Department of Education, Agency for Healthcare Administration, Department of Health, Department of Elderly Affairs, and Department of Juvenile Justice. So basically any official, like if you're working in official capacity with any of those departments, when you're working with children, disabled, or elderly, those entities will always have access to these records, even if they're sealed or expunged. Another one is if you're attempting to purchase a firearm. That's another entity that will always have access. And then another last is licensed by the Division of Insurance Agent or Agency Services with the Department of Financial Services. So these are the organizations that will have access to your records. If your record is sealed, then they'll have access and they'll be able to view it. If your record is expunged, then they have to get a court order to be able to view those records. So they have to take that, which a lot of times doesn't happen. And so you'll find, though, with a lot of these agencies that I just listed, if you're applying for a job, that question is specifically asked. Everybody knows most jobs ask, like, have you ever been convicted of a crime? But there are certain jobs in applications, like the Florida Bar, will take it a step further and say, have you ever had a case sealed or expunged? So that's the main difference between sealing and expunging. How you're able to qualify for them is if the charge that you're trying to get erased off of your record, if it was dismissed, then you can get it expunged. If you got a withhold of adjudication, which means a conviction was withheld on the charge, then you are eligible for a seal. Also, if you have a case that has been sealed for 10 years, then you can apply to get it expunged, okay? There are certain charges that are not eligible to be sealed. So that means you may take a plea with the court, and you may receive a withhold of adjudication on a felony charge and certain misdemeanors. And if you do so, that's still good because that means that you're not convicted of that crime. So for felony cases, you don't lose certain rights. However, if you get a withhold of adjudication on certain charges, then you cannot apply them sealed. Well, you can, but you're going to waste your money and your time and your effort and energy because you're going to get denied. If this is you, if you fit into this category, I'm saving you some time and a couple of bucks. Just going to go through a couple of the charges. Again, everything is statutory. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is the agency who governs, who administers the certificates to get your case sealed or expunged. And they have a very user-friendly website. But these are some of the charges that even if you get a withhold of adjudication, you cannot get sealed off your record. Arson, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, illegal use of explosives, child abuse or aggravated child abuse, abuse of an elderly person or disabled adult, aircraft piracy, kidnapping, homicide, manslaughter, sexual battery, robbery, carjacking, lewd, lascivious, or indecent assault, sexual activity with the child, burglary of a dwelling, stalking, evaded stalking, act of domestic violence, home invasion, robbery, active terrorism, attempting or conspiring to commit any of the crimes I just listed, or manufacturing any substances in violation of 893, which is our drug statute. So manufacturing any drugs or controlled substances. So that's the list of charges that don't apply to get sealed. The most common one that applies to like so many people are domestic violence charges. As we know, domestic violence is common. And it's a charge that if arrested for, and even if you get a withhold of adjudication, it's a misdemeanor, right? And so you may think that I'm just taking a plea to this misdemeanor. I'm just trying to get this case over with. Domestic violence charges, even when misdemeanors, are ineligible to get sealed, okay? And so taking a plea to that misdemeanor, if it's domestic violence, will prevent you from getting your record sealed. So I just want to make sure people understand that. Trying to look at any questions. Somebody asked, do you all do trusts? No, we do not. But if you call the office, I may be able to refer you to someone. If I may be able to answer some like general questions. Yeah, I see that question, and that's all I see. Okay. Next is, what is the process to seal or expunge? Okay, so how do I do it? What do I need to do? I mentioned earlier that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, is who administers the certificates of eligibility. Okay, and they have a packet. This is the packet. So if you go online, you can actually print the application. Also, it's really convenient. They have like the fillable form, so it just looks fancier if you just type in your information, or you could just print it and write into it. But this is what the form looks like. It's going to ask your general personal information. It's going to ask what the charge is that you're trying to get sealed or expunged. And then you have to sign in front of a notary. So this has to be notarized before you send it back to the Department of Law Enforcement. There's a section here that says for expunction only. So if you're just applying to get your record sealed, you don't have to worry about this next section, okay? But if you want your record expunged, you're going to have to take this extra step, and this part has to be filled out by the state attorney's office, and it has to be the state attorney who's responsible for charging the case that you're trying to get expunged. Okay, so you fill this out, and then you send it to the state attorney's office to sign it and say that you're eligible, and then they will mail it back to you. So for me, I'm in court almost every day. I'm downtown almost every day, so I have like a drop box at the state attorney's office, but you can also mail it to them and put a self-addressed envelope, and then they'll mail it back to you with the signature. And this last section is for the FDLE to file. So this is the section that you're responsible for if you are filling out the application. It's just this first chunk right here. And then, like I said, this part only for expunction goes to the state attorney's office. This part goes to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. You also have to pay a $75 application fee. So that's how much it costs to apply to get your record sealed or expunged. All right. And then you also have to fill out this fingerprint card. Okay. This is also, this whole packet is printable at FDLE's website, but this is the fingerprint card that you have to get filled out by a law enforcement agency. And I get this question a lot too, because I will tell you, in the pandemic with COVID, a lot of law enforcement agencies have cut off their fingerprinting services. And FDLE is aware of that, but they are still not waiving the requirement that it be completed by a law enforcement agency. So if you're in Central Florida, you have to get it done by like the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Orlando Police Department. For a while during the pandemic, those were not doing fingerprint services. I think the Altamont law enforcement agency was still doing it. So clients were having to, we were trying to have to get creative. They were having to kind of drive further to get the fingerprints, because you can get fingerprints a lot of times at like a UPS. I think sometimes even the post office, they do it, but it's not in an official capacity. So what I'm hoping to do is to avoid you having to waste your time, effort, and energy, because this process takes a long time. And if you have any missteps, it kind of starts your process over again. So you want to make sure when this packet, if you're sending it off, that you do it correctly. Because if you have it done, if you have your fingerprints done, but it's not done by a law enforcement agency, then they're going to come back. All right. And then this little checklist that kind of makes it easy. So before you mail it, you're not have any missteps. Sure that you have the application. So that's what you need. You have to make sure that the application is completely filled out. Again, it has to be notarized. Make sure that their stamp is not expired. I've seen that as an issue before as well. Also, you get a certified copy of the disposition of your case. The disposition is how the case was disposed of, how they goes out. You can get that from the clerk of court. And clerk has her own way of doing things, but go into a clerk of court office and get a copy. It's usually like $1 or $2. Some clerk's offices allow you to fax in or email requests for certified disposition. So you would just have to go to the clerk of court of the county of the charge that you're trying to get erased from your record and figure out their procedure for getting you the copy of the certified disposition. You have to make sure that the fingerprint card is completed at a law enforcement agency. You also have to provide a $75 check that is made payable. It's check or money order that's made payable to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement law enforcement. I also recommend anytime that you mail something official like this, that you make a copy of everything that you're mailing. But you take all of that, you mail it off to FDLE, and then you wait. That is the part that is not so fun. If you go, I usually tell clients it's going to take like 6 to 12 months just to be safe, because you don't want to tell people it's going to happen faster and it doesn't. It just gets so. But yeah, you have to wait for FDLE to complete. So what they're going to do is they're going to get your application. It's going to be processed in the order that it was received. And what they're going to do is they're going to read over it, make sure that you filled it out completely. If you did, then they're going to do like a background check to make sure you don't have any criminal history in any other place. because you are not eligible to get your record sealed or expunged if you have any prior convictions of any crime, misdemeanor or felony in any place. Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, does not matter. Okay. So another way to avoid you wasting your time, effort, energy, and dollars, if you've been convicted of a crime, you are not going to be eligible to get your record sealed or expunged. Okay. If you're unsure, I would consult with an attorney so we can figure it out, because I've had, and it's all thinking, and I'll ask clients like, hey, before we send this application off, have you ever been arrested? Do you have any criminal history? Nope, nope, nope. And then I'll get back the application and FDLE is they have a criminal record in Georgia. I'm like, hey, you didn't tell me about this criminal record in Georgia. And then, I get, oh, I didn't think it mattered. So it matters. Okay. So once FDLE responds back with the go ahead, the thumbs up, it's called a certificate of eligibility. It used to be like a fancy certificate that had like one of those, I don't know, monogram seals. Now it's all electronic. So they just send you an email that says you're good to go. Then you file a motion with in the clerk in the county, in the circuit that you have the charge. It's either going to be a motion to seal or a motion to expunge. You also have to attach with that the certificate of eligibility that FDLE sends you. You also have to attach an affidavit of eligibility saying that you are who you say you are, that you are eligible for this. And then also an order. An order is something that the judge signs that is the directive to do what you're asking them to do, which is either to expunge or to seal the case. I have a question. These are things that I want to become a pilot and roofing certified contractor. Would this affect? Okay, so it really just depends. Like every lawyer's favorite answer, right? So I listed the organizations that have the official capacity to find out whether or not there's a record. I will say that, it's unfortunate, but in this digital age, even if you get a record sealed or expunged, sometimes you still have mugshots. And so I think that there could be an effect, could be a way that people could find out about your, even if you got sealed or expunged. And I do plan to talk about that at the end. But I always say, anytime that you have contact law enforcement and you have a criminal record, yes, it can affect your possibilities to get jobs. So I think it depends on the charge. I think it depends on the charge. I think it depends on when the charge happened, but it can always affect your employment. So could it affect it? It could. Anything's possible. But if you want to increase the likelihood of an employer or anyone knowing about your criminal history, then you should get your record sealed or expunged. Because if there's a way to avoid them using it against you, this is the way to do it. So that's kind of like my disclaimer. And so back on, for a motion to seal and expunge, after you file the motion, the affidavit, and the order, then you wait. The judge that is overseeing the case typically waits for the state attorney's office to respond. Sometimes they object to the motion to seal or the motion to expunge. Sometimes they don't. If they don't, the state attorney's office in Orange County, at least, will file a motion that says they object or they don't object. So if it's a motion that they do not object to, that's called an unopposed motion, which means the state and the defense are basically saying that they want the same thing, or the other side doesn't care, is not objecting to it. Then the judge will typically just sign that chambers. You won't have to have a hearing. But if for some reason the state attorney objects, and the state attorney does object sometimes to both sealing and expunging. For sealing, a lot of times, what I see most commonly is if it's like a theft case, a felony theft case that it involves an employer, a lot of times the state attorney's office will object, and they'll use the reason for objecting to that is they think it's important that future employers know that a theft occurred at a job. And so that's the most felony sealing objection that I get from the state attorney's office is that one. For expunging, typically when it's a victim involved case. So say it's a regular battery, not a DD battery, but just a regular battery charge that got dismissed for whatever reason. but for some reason the victim is objecting to the case being expunged, then sometimes the state attorney will object. And if they do, then what happens is the judge will have a hearing. They'll give the defense an opportunity to explain why they deserve and why they're asking for the seal or the expungement, and then the state will state their objections and why. If they have witnesses, they'll allow them to call witnesses, and then the judge will make a ruling. So, next question is, how long does the process take? If you go on FDLE's website, it says over 90 days to process applications. So over 90 days could mean anything, right? And they also say the 90 days does not include weekends or holidays. I will tell you that the turnaround time has become increasingly slower during the pandemic. But I tell people when they want to get their records sealed or expunged, expect that FDLE is going to take about 6 months to get you back that certificate. And it could be more. And so I say this to say, if you have a charge and you're not in a position right now to where it's pressing that you get it sealed or expunged, do it now. Because what's unfortunate is I'll have people that come to me and they're like, I just got denied this apartment, or I just got denied this job because of this case. So I want to get expunged real quick, or I want to get it sealed real quick, and they can't. So the best time to do something is when you don't need it, because eventually you may, and it's just not a process that can be rushed with or without an attorney. There is a mandatory period that you must wait when getting your record sealed or expunged. So I encourage you, as soon as the case is closed, just done. Just knock it out, get it done, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Next question, and I kind of addressed this earlier, was, will getting my record sealed or expunged take my mugshot off the internet? And unfortunately, and very frustratingly, I say no. Because these are private companies, right? And so a very common one, mugshots.com, they take these mugshots and they put them on their website. I will tell you that usually if you just contact the companies directly and show them proof that your case was dismissed and your case was expunged, sometimes they'll just erase it. Sometimes they'll charge. There are companies I know of, like you just Google it. I don't work with any personally, but I've had clients like just Google it and find a company that guarantees that they'll get all of your mugshots removed. And if they ever pop up again, they'll keep monitoring it. And so they do some sort of like deep internet dive to see all the private companies that have purchased your mugshot, that have posted your mugshot, and then they'll go ahead and get it erased, however they do in the technology world. So no, getting your record sealed and expunged does not get it erased off of these private companies, but you may have to just contact those companies directly and get it removed. Okay, and last question is, do I need an attorney to get my record sealed or expunged? No, you don't. It is a process that is oftentimes completed without an attorney. I will tell you that it may take you longer, and you may make some mistakes. Motions are very technical. The statute is, you can see, it's like 4 pages long for one. This one is 5 pages long for the other one. And it can be a little complicated. I will tell you that as user-friendly as the FDLE's website is, you still may run into questions. And then even once you get the certificate back, you have to be the actual motion and the order have very strict. All of it is something that is in writing, either in the Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure or Florida State's. So if you feel so compelled to read them, do the research on your own, absolutely you can do it. But I advise most people, if you want to get it done right, if you want to get it done quickly, if you want to get it done most efficiently, that you hire an attorney to get it done. For all of my clients, at the conclusion of the case, if they are eligible, I send them the information. I send them the links to do it on their own. I will say in Orange County, our shout out to Tiffany Moore Russell, who is our clerk of court. Our website is so awesome in Orlando. They actually have templates. And so you can go on the county clerk, and like some clerks and even like courthouses have like self-help centers. So there may be like a more cost efficient way for you to get it done without having to hire a private attorney to do it. But if you are in a position where you can afford it, then I would definitely advise you to hire an attorney just to get it done for you. And yeah, I think that's it. So again, it was a pleasure. Thank you for being patient with me as I switch from camera to camera. Again, I have an IG, hello, and Facebook, whoo, hi. And so I wanted to try to make sure I was engaging with both. Again, my name is Attorney Alicia Adamson Profit. I pride myself on being a criminal defense attorney. If you know me, you know I absolutely love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I feel like it is my purpose. But our firm is a full service law firm. We do family law, immigration, and defense. So our office number is 407-02-323. I know I couldn't cover it. So if you have additional questions, or like sometimes people don't want to like put their business out on Instagram or Facebook because the comments are public. So if you have any questions, feel free to call the office, set up a consultation. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. Happy Friday. I love you and have a great day. Woohoo!